Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Second, I didn't make that up. I don't think...
but it sounds like something you would have created.
Yeah, it does. It has this sort of tall tales-ish ring to it, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's
but I
authority
didn't.
and credibility.
Yeah, I didn't. Advancing the truth, as is our custom here on Tall Tales, I didn't make it up myself. I copied it out of the Bill of Rights to the United States Constitution. It's the Second Amendment to that Constitution, and it's an important one, as they all are. So here we are for another exciting episode of Tall Tales. We've done away, or we've disposed of, or we've paid homage to the Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment. So let's go straight to Zemi Ikotny. So here we go again. One of those days when both newspapers saw fit to, instead of putting ink in their printing presses, loaded the printing presses up with milk toast. Yeah. I will say this, though, as far as the Pacific Daily News is concerned, I think we're finally making some progress. The headline of the editorial is this: Our view, Gov Guam must improve access and opportunities for those with disabilities. And the editorial cartoon actually fits the editorial, and it's not some left-wing propaganda, which is what we usually see in the Daily News. What it is a gentleman in a wheelchair pulled up to a desk with a lady behind it sitting at a word processor and the sign receptionist on the desk. Behind the lady is a steep staircase. And the lady in the balloon, the lady is saying to the man in the wheelchair, applications are available on the second floor. Properly drawn political editorials can speak mouthfuls. I mean, they can be really effective. And I think this one it really gets the message across quickly. No, it says 11/10/19. So my suspicion is this is not a homegrown editorial. It's something they found online somewhere and fitted it to the editorial, which is okay. It's better than taking the junk that USA Today sends out. That kind of shows if they were going to do something dealing with people with disabilities, they would show people who had only one arm, and that would be the left arm, no doubt.
Is that cartoon from the digital version? Because
yeah.
they didn't get it in time for the print version. The print version's a little different, but...
What is the print version?
It has the athletes who aren't taking the vaccine standing in line. And then somebody goes, COVID? No, these are the self-centered, privileged, narcissistic, condescending, jerky jock tests.
I did see that. Yeah. I get the facsimile online, and I did see that. So I take back half of what I said.
It just, they can only be half smart.
Yeah. So they on the hard copy, they'll stick to their hard left stuff, right? Their message, their gaslighting, their agenda. Even though the letters are orange, the word is red. Yeah, they'll stick to that pretty tight. But at least for those of us who go to the online edition,
spot on.
Not the online edition, but the web edition. Yeah, it's a good editorial. The editorial doesn't really say much of anything. Bill 235, companies in which a person with a mental or physical disability owns at least 51% would be favored in bids to provide services or products to GovGuam. Companies would have to be certified through the U.S. Small Business Association or another third party, and prices would have to be no more than 105% the lowest bid. Are we getting kind of carried away with this? You know, women.
I was just about to say,
Yeah.
Are they correlating something here?
Yeah.
Is this equality or equity?
It's equity for sure. Now, this is really snide. So today they're talking about the 105% preference for people with disabilities. The first disability they took a crack at was women. Yeah, I'll just let it go there. So it's once again, let's make sure that we and I, searching my memory a little bit, I remember when the bill that would provide the 105% set off for female-owned companies, that the president of the Women's Chamber at that time said, we don't want special treatment, we just want a level playing field.
Well, here's something this is kind of food for thought. We have women's sports being dominated by transgendered women.
Yes.
We have pageants also being entered, and I think some are being won by transgendered women.
Uh-huh.
We have talk show contestants from Jeopardy.
Yes.
The most winningest female is actually a transgendered woman.
Uh-huh.
And now the other day, the best female actress award for the Golden Globes went to a transgendered woman.
Uh-huh.
It's making me think of this argument about the dominant sexes is being answered. I'm going to get heat for that, of course, but this is just kind of ironic.
Yeah, and you got to wonder how long it will take the fem libs to say, we don't want no stinking transgenders. You know, everything we fought for, the men have taken away from us again.
But it is an interesting narrative to look at and say, so how can I take advantage of this? This not just this bill for the disabled, but the women in business bill that gives the 51% threshold. How much of me can I do 51% to become or identify as a woman?
All you have to do is just identify. Yeah, get yourself. You know, like the what is it? I can't remember her name. I think it's Levin, the deputy secretary of.
Yeah.
CDC, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 4-star admiral in the public health service. All you got to do is get yourself a hideous wig, right? And borrow a couple dresses from your wife, and you'll be all set. You don't need, that's all you need.
It seems to be a conversation nobody wants to have right now.
Really? Yeah, except tall tales. Okay, so I'm not going to spend any more time on the daily news. Going to the Post, drive-through Wuhan virus testing system needs to get better. Now, of course, I know a really good consultant that the government ought to be consulting on this drive-through testing angle. I suspect you do too, Jose. Yeah, that's the one. We give the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services and the Guam National Guard credit for continuing to offer drive-through Wuhan testing in Tizan. With a resurgence in Wuhan testing cases reaching more than 200 new infections a day recently, the drive-through free testing site in Tizan is again seeing long lines of motorists and people waiting for hours. By mid-morning Monday, more than 100 cars were in line. The government-run mass testing site prioritizes test seekers who made appointments online by registering at, and here's an URL, an online self-assessment form is also available for people to fill out before they reach the front of the line. The form can be downloaded at, and another URL. For people who show up for testing without online appointments, the wait could take longer. Janella Carrera, spokesperson for the Department of Public Health and Social Services, said the appointment system was put in place to reduce wait times and long lines. It might not be as smooth as we hope, but eventually, as more people become aware of the appointment system, it will eventually get better. Appointments can be made through January 15 by registering at another URL. Hours of operation at the old carnival grounds in Tizen are from 8 till noon and 1 to 3. Residents without appointments will be accepted on a limited basis, the JICS stated. We think public health and Guam Guard can find better ways to run the testing site. Some of our fellow Guamanians do not have the means to register using a web-based app. Some don't even have transportation to reach the testing site. Suggestion: there should always be a dedicated line for people without appointments. This line should be flexible so that when the line gets longer, more personnel can be shifted to divide the line and cut the waiting time. Suggestion 2, have a walk-in desk. I know a desk has, I know your average desk has 4 legs, but I don't think I've ever seen one walk.
It's a moving target, so those who get too tired chasing it, go home.
I guess. Have a walk-in desk. Allow people to park their cars and get seated while in line under a canopy. Not everyone has a newer model car that can withstand being parked while the engine is running for long periods of time without running the risk of catastrophic overheating. And with gas prices nearing $5 a gallon, it's not the best idea to have people wait in their cars this long with the engine and air conditioning running. Okay, I got my blue pencil here. I'm putting a big X right after that sentence. You just lost 5 points here, Guam Daily Post. You didn't mention climate change in the context of having cars sitting there running and not going anywhere. That is bad for the environment. Forget about all the rest of this stuff.
Could have been a home run.
Yeah, wow.
You know what they didn't mention? Business licenses for concessions. There is an opportunity there.
Yeah, or a franchise perhaps. Yeah, like we did with the safety inspection for automobiles. It used to be such a pain back in the days when the only place you could get an inspection was down in that shop on the road between Agana and Mong Mong. Yeah, down there in the swamp. Yeah, the Agana Mayor's office was built as the vehicle inspection station. One station, right? And if you're down there in the end of the month, you know, everybody that you knew was down there.
Where would they line up?
There was like a driveway, and then, of course, on the road. Yeah, so perhaps a similar approach. Perhaps, you know, in the States, you can get all kinds of stuff, including a test at a drugstore. You can go into a drugstore and get your test. You can go into a drugstore and get your vaccine, et cetera. You can get your annual flu shot. Something like that might work here really, really well.
I have a couple of those home tests my sister's brought to me. And what's beneficial is that you don't get a bloody nose.
Wow.
It doesn't go all the way up. You just swab inside.
All right. Suggestion number 3, have a mobile COVID testing team make the rounds in villages. Many people do not have reliable cars to get to and from the testing site and cannot dedicate those vehicles to long waiting times. People should be able to be tested through a mobile team that can go door to door with the help of village mayors. Are we carrying this a little bit too far? Oh, the doorbell rang. Who is it? Public health. Anyone here need a COVID test? Yeah, we got a couple that need COVID tests, but they're out playing now. So can you come back in about 20 minutes? Okay, we'll do that. Suggestion 4, offer free testing after regular work hours. Many people with day jobs and students who need to attend school will miss public health's current test schedule, 8 to noon and 1 to 3. What is this? You run a government agency for the benefit of the citizens instead of the people that work at the agency? What kind of cockamamie idea is this? Everybody knows GovGuam works 8 to 5, and that's it. The local government should offer services that will be accessible to everyone who needs them, and not necessarily have them adjust to GovGuam work hours and GovGuam's way of doing things. Federal funds pay for Wuhan testing and the personnel running it, so it's not like GovGuam has made some serious financial sacrifices to make this happen. All GovGuam needs to do is make service as efficient as possible, and being flexible to address the needs of constituents is part of what public service is all about. Well, and of course, here's suggestion number 5. This comes from Tall Tales. Put drive-through Jack on the payroll. If anyone understands rapid delivery of service and multitasking, it's our friend Drive-Through Jack. So perhaps a deputy director position at Public Health. Yeah, deputy director in charge of drive-throughs. That would be our Jack. Okay, so even though they flubbed on the eco-fascist part of their recommendations, and even though they didn't recommend Drive-Through Jack, it is a real editorial. It's got all the elements of an editorial, including a call to action. So, congratulations, Guam Daily Post. There you go. So that takes us up to, shucks, I forgot. Jose, can you print out my card? I forgot to bring the card along.
Sure thing. If that's the Post,
that was the Post, yeah.
that'd be 262 for the Post.
All right.
75 for PDN, and Candid News with 5.
Okay. Let's, I don't have a card, so I'm just going to have to thumb through what I got here. I start out, of course. Oh, wait, I do have a card. I just misfiled it. I got it, yeah. Starting out with the card for January 12th. We start out, of course, with systemic racism as made known to us by Paul Zerzan. And I don't think I need to explain it any further. You just need to look at this picture and know that that's red rice if you're going to follow the narrative. If you're interested in facts and truth, it's orange rice. And we hit that dichotomy almost every item on the card. But that's Paul Zerzan's very valuable contribution to the discussion here on Tall Tales. So I've got that. I've got more of Ray versus the fence. I've got Rory versus BJ, Manny Cruz versus Bavacqua, Tall Tales versus gaslighting, Cops versus Quasi Drive-Through Jack, and Tall Tales versus Separatists. Looks like maybe somebody wants to get on the show here before I plunge into the card. It's Bob Kelly who wants to talk about testing. All right. Bob Kelly is an extremely knowledgeable individual who seldom opens his, well, let's put it this way. When Bob Kelly opens his mouth, he never offends silence. Good afternoon, Bob.
Hello. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the testing because I'm not necessarily in agreement with some of what in the Post had, like the door-to-door and so on. But what we really need to do, and I'm kind of looking at this because I spent some time in Texas, at Pasadena, Texas, during the Christmas holidays. They had multiple test sites in various parts, run by the county, as a matter of fact, Harris County. But taking this to Guam, the problem is we're trying to get everybody to line up in one place, and we have limited hours. First off, we have the National Guard doing a lot of the work, and they could have 1 or 2 public health people and several National Guard would be all that would need to man if they had multiple sites. And because the National Guard is really on active duty, even if it's territorial active duty, I'm not sure what type of active duty they're on, it's not a job that needs to end at 3 o'clock. They can put guardsmen in shifts and run hours to be able to make it work for everybody. But I'm thinking if they in Dededo had a site, for instance, at the sports center, if they set up something around Paseo Stadium, set something down in Aga Santa Rita by the mayor's office or something, maybe one more site, then people wouldn't all have to be going to one place during limited hours. And that would make it much more convenient. And nowhere am I looking at, as far as the public thing, are they requiring appointments right now in the States. You just got to go during the hours that they're open. You can get appointments at the drugstores, at H-E-B, Kroger, but you also have the public site. And also testing is, and this is including Guam, is free for anybody that's on Medicare. If they have Part B Medicare, it is covered. So they can go to the American Medical Clinic, they can go to FHP, SDA, over to Express Clinics and get their thing covered by Medicare. They don't all have to be going and lining up at the stadium or at the TGen.
Well, very valuable, Bob. Thank you very much for the enlightening remarks. Appreciate it.
But anyway, we need multiple sites. Having one site open only 6 days a week, I don't know, maybe COVID takes a vacation on Sunday, but they need to be open 7 days a week, more hours, and more locations, especially now. At this stage, testing is as we've vaccinated everybody that's got to get vaccinated. Those who are vaccinated are still going to get COVID with a new variant out there. So testing has to be the emphasis more than even the vaccinations, because anybody that wants to be vaccinated can be vaccinated, but not anybody that wants to be tested can get it done conveniently.
Yeah, good points, Bob. Good points all. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bob Kelly. So, I want to just say one thing. Bob mentioned American Medical Center. You can go there for your testing. You can go there for your vaccine. I'm not going to mention, today I'm not going to mention it, but there are places that have really good doctors and absolutely horrible customer service. I mean, it would seem that the objective of the clinic is to see how many people they can fill their waiting room with for a couple of hours. That's not American Medical Center. Good customer service, good medical doctors, good tests. The whole thing works really well at AMC. I've been there. I've done the whole thing at AMC, and it's a good place to go. Okay, let's take a short break.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
The Eat Fresh Refresh goes on at Subway. You've tried the Cali Fresh steak. Now you can enjoy the Cali Fresh turkey. One of only 2 Cali Fresh subs. The Cali Fresh turkey is packed with deli-thin, oven-roasted turkey piled high on a bed of hickory-smoked bacon, smashed avocado, and fresh mozzarella. Crafted for premium freshness, the Cali Fresh turkey is made on freshly baked, hearty, multi-grain bread with your choice of fresh veggies, hand-sliced daily in restaurants. Treat yourself to a Cali Fresh turkey today. Subway. Eat fresh.
Is it time to sell a new car? Nope, it's time to sell a used car from Nissan Guam. They have what they refer to as certified pre-owned vehicle. Their used cars aren't just washed and then stuck on a lot. Nissan Guam carefully inspects and repairs each one inside out before it earns a spot in their certified pre-owned inventory. A full 32-point inspection is done. Vehicles undergo repairs and replacement of things like belts, air filters, coolant, transmission fluid, engine oil, plenty of stuff. And once they're up to their roadworthy standards, then they're fully detailed inside and out. You know, I pity the guy that has to detail mine because there's sand everywhere. There's sand and receipts and all kinds of other stuff. Used car manager Marlon Laxon prices the vehicles below Kelley Blue Book. They've got a diverse inventory, and you're sure to find the perfect used car for your lifestyle and budget. For the complete inventory, go online at nissanguam.com.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Jose, did you want to share with our international listening audience your experience with T-shirts and tests?
I would make a killing. I want to sell T-shirts over at the testing sites because
Yeah.
people are waiting in long lines. They want to have something to remember, their time well spent.
Yeah.
And the shirt I have is I got tested for COVID-19, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt and a punctured nasal cavity.
There we go. Very good, Jose. It's going to be, if you go public, if you have an IPO, I want to get in on the ground floor on that one because
Sure thing.
That's going to be big bucks, I think.
They're going to sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
And I should sell hotcakes too.
All right, so here we go. First item on the card, more Ray versus the fence. Okay, a little background here. You know that Ray, ever since, has been kvetching about that ugly fence that on Marine Corps Drive, adjacent to John F. Kennedy High School between JFK and Kmart on the other side of the road. And we know the reason that the fence was put up is because students from JFK would jaywalk to get over to Kmart instead of using the crosswalk and the traffic signals. So this stupid fence was put up, and it is really, really ugly. I don't know if there's a fence manufacturer that specializes in ugly fences or if this took a lot of, maybe it's modified, I don't know, but
It was procured that way.
it does, yeah. And then the fence wasn't up too long before someone plowed into the front of it. So the part that, if there is any sense in it at all, the part that would be the operative part of the fence, that is the part that would cut, that would stop kids from jaywalking and taking a shortcut across the road, is missing. But the fence goes on for probably another 50 yards towards the Ganya for no apparent reason. So this has been a cause célèbre for Ray for a long, long time. He keeps asking, when is somebody going to do something about that fence? So there was an article in the paper yesterday. JFK students caught jaywalking to Kmart after school daily. And, the director of, the superintendent of education didn't know anything about it, and we didn't find out anything from the mayor or Steve Ignacio or anything like that. But the superintendent said, well, we'll monitor the situation and see what we can do there. Now, just to let you know what it is that we're talking about, if you were to look at 16 GCA, section 3332, you'd find something that says jaywalking. It shall be unlawful for any pedestrian to cross any road at any point between adjacent intersections that are controlled by traffic control signal device or police officer, except in an officially designated crosswalk. It's a violation, just like illegal parking, something like that. So today we have a story in the Post. Yeah. No students have been, wait a minute, I think it's PNC.
PNC,
Yeah,
yes.
it's PNC. No students have been caught jaywalking from JFK to Kmart. As reported yesterday, students typically walk over to Kmart because a handful of them are parked on the roof while others use it as a pickup point for their rides, especially for those who live north. Parents referenced the long stretch of road they would have to drive southbound on Marine Corps Drive before they would be able to make a U-turn to head north. They are nudged toward that decision, which is not an illegal action. So if they can turn into Kmart, pick the kids up, and then just go back on Marine Corps Drive heading north. They don't have to make that long loop down there to make a U-turn. On Monday, Superintendent John Fernandez informed PNC that he would be reaching out. He couldn't just call her. He would be reaching out to Tamuning Mayor and the Guam Police Department to address the issue. However, in an interview with K57's Patty Arroyo, Tamuning Mayor Luis Rivera said, "They didn't call me about it."
That's not good.
She noted that she is in regular communications with school officials, but no one had informed her about the problem of students regularly jaywalking to reach Kmart. Now, I have to wonder where these people live. You know, I'm not in the school business. I'm not a mayor. I don't run the school system. But I've known forever that kids jaywalk across that intersection.
That's why I said it's a problem. She's either not telling the truth or is completely clueless what's going on in her village.
Exactly. And neither one of them is not very admirable for a village mayor. Superintendent Fernandez confirmed that they weren't able to forward the video to the mayor, but notes that they had contacted the chief of police and the Department of Public Works. He also mentioned that they would be, quote, working to see what they can do to improve the area. How about tear down that ugly fence? And the DOE had asked JFK to determine how to address the issue with more monitoring during dismissal. Well, you know, not only do they not know what's going on, well, maybe this is the compensation. They don't know what's going on, but they've got minds like steel traps when it comes to solving problems. They're going to have someone monitor that crosswalk. Wow.
Just to make sure.
Yeah. Here we go. After dismissal, PNC headed to JFK to check up on the situation. The JFK principal could be seen on the premises with a bullhorn, coordinating foot traffic and asking drivers of illegally parked cars to drive farther down the road. Many ignored his direction. So that's what we need. You know, every principal should have a bullhorn so he can take control of the situation, right? On the topic of jaywalking, it seemed for yesterday at least the situation has been remedied. Well, how much emphasis has to be put on solving a minor problem? You know, cars are illegally parked, I suppose, to pick up kids. Kids are jaywalking. People are going all the way down around the end to make U-turns. Couldn't someone come in and say, "Hey, look, this is what we got to do," and solve those problems? You know, on about a half sheet of paper. Yeah, but it takes Ray Gibson to bring it to people's attention. Well, let's let Ray take a victory lap anyhow. He's making some progress.
Maybe we ought to resurrect President Ronald Reagan. Gorbachev, tear down this fence.
Yeah, Vince Areola. Mr. Areola, tear down this fence.
It worked for Russia.
Yeah. Okay, next item on the card is Rory versus BJ. And I have here the notice of the meeting of the Port Authority Board of Directors scheduled for January 20th at 3 p.m. And by the way, this new law, 36-34, is one of the best laws that's been enacted for a long, long time, because you can finally find out what's going on in the government without having to call up somebody at the agency who we probably won't know anyhow. Yeah, you can just spend a little time with the paper and you can know exactly what these boards and commissions are doing or what they're not doing. So for the agenda for that January 20 meeting, there's some violations. For instance, Item 6, old business. You can't do that. You can't just put old business in the agenda because you have to put the public on notice what that old business is. And if you don't have any old business, don't put it in there. Yeah, but you know, that's the standard agenda. We always, no. Item 7, new business. Something about low sulfur diesel fuel. And then resolution 2022-01, relative to adopting the recommendations by the Office of Public Accountability in its performance audits, report number 21-03 and OPA report 21-09. Specifically, the ratification of back wages provided for 7 recently instated port employees, that would be the Port 7. We've talked about this on the show before, as recommended by the OPA, and ratifying such actions specifying legal remedies, that is, compensation of total back wages, interest and legal fees and costs, and to further providing herein a structure establishing uniformity and consistency in how port management will prospectively address these matters. Now, you'll remember in BJ's, it was more than a report, it was an expose, how a couple of employees were who were reinstated had never been rated above average. One was rated super duper, and the other one was rated super, and it cost the government $105,000 because that inflated the amount of their back pay. And there was absolutely no reason to support it whatsoever. Stuff like that. BJ really hit it hard in his expose, and Rory's response was, well, we disagree, we think we're fine, etc. But now he's put this stuff on the agenda for the port. So will the directors actually take the necessary action, or will they use it as one more opportunity to let BJ know that they don't need no stinking public auditor's report? Interesting question. And then the most interesting thing to me was that they took action on some of BJ's report, but here's the part that I thought was the most important, and it's on page 7 of BJ's executive summary. The port's incumbent deputy general manager served as the chairman of the board of the Civil Service Commission. I don't think he served as the chairman of the board of the Civil Service Commission. I think he served as the chairman of the Civil Service Commission. But you know, those people up there think there are two different things. Well, there's the board, and then the folks that work there, that's the commission. Yeah. He was chairman from 2003 to 2019 until he transferred to the Port Authority of Guam in December 2019. As chairman of the CSC commissioners, he signed the CSC decisions and judgments of appeal cases of the employees that the audit covered between 2014 and 2019. The CSC, the Civil Service Commission boards, the Civil Service Commission has a board too. The Civil Service Commission chairman joined the Port Authority of Guam in December 2019 as deputy general manager for finance and administration. From then on, he signed the agreement to satisfy judgment and NPAs for employees' T reinstatement and annual salary increments from 2012 to 2019, which were all prepared in January 2020. With the incumbent deputy GM's participation in the CSC appeal case judgment promulgation and signing of port documents related to employees' reinstatement, these portrayed an appearance of a conflict of interest. Although the incumbent GM has no financial interest in his official actions, and there is neither is he related to the reinstated employees as declared by the port GM, we refer to the applicable provisions of 4 GCA Chapter 15 Standard of Conduct for elected officers, appointed officers, etc. And this is what it says. No former employee shall within 12 months after termination from employment assist any business or person or act in a representative capacity for a fee or other consideration on matters involving official action by the particular territorial agency which the employee had actually served. As former chairman of the board of CSC, the incumbent deputy general manager had served any government agency by rendering decisions relative to cases filed with the CSC by an agency involved. Therefore, it would have been imprudent for the DGM to recuse himself from participating in port actions relative to the employee's reinstatement. That doesn't sound good, but it's even worse than it sounds. Because Rory made a lot of noise about saying, I'm not going to deal with any of these. I'm recusing myself. And I'm appointing the deputy general manager to do this. Well, this would have been a good time for the Rory to say, I'd like to appoint the deputy general manager, but I can't because he used to be chairman of the Civil Service Commission. Failing that, it would have been a good time for Luis Baza, the deputy general manager, to say, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the confidence you are reposing in me, but I think it would be perceived as a conflict of interest for me to take on this job, so I respectfully decline. That didn't happen. And I made a lot of it on Tall Tales here. As a matter of fact, I referenced that movie Pulp Fiction, where when one of the criminal operations turned to ashes, they called in a gentleman named the Wolf, a guy named Warren Wolf, who cleaned up the bloody car and made everything come out right. So I was calling Louis Baza the Wolf when Rory brought him in, and the ink was hardly dry on his GG1 when Rory said, I'm appointing the deputy general manager to do the negotiations here because I'm recusing myself. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on January 20th. Will the port actually go through with this? Will they do anything about their deputy general manager? Stay tuned to Tall Tales for the rest of the details. Okay, let's take a short break here, and we'll go to Manny Cruz versus Bavacqua.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Okay, we got about 10 more minutes to the big halftime show. Jose, can you tell us a little bit about Buck and Clay and Wuhan virus testing?
Yeah, I was overheard by one of our listeners, and I can't pull up that comment. I don't know why. But apparently they had a very interesting analogy that sounded very similar to poet laureate Andrew Camacho, yes, that's who he is, description of how the Wuhan virus is going to be reported. So they had something where a gentleman was eaten by sharks, but in their story, their version, his arm was recovered and tested positive for Wuhan. So his cause of death was not being eaten by a shark, but was from COVID.
Yeah, well, that's good, Buck and Clay, and I'm glad you guys are listening in. Buck and Clay play right before Tall Tales. They're the warm-up for Tall Tales, actually. And and they took over for Rush Limbaugh. So I'm glad to know you guys are listening, and if you want, I can forward the card to you every day so you can really kind of keep track of what's going on here. as far as our affiliation with Fox, when Ray asked me if I wanted to do this show, he said, it would really help out. It would really help out Rush, kind of flesh out the card, for his day, and Rush will be doing the warm up for your show. And it would also help the evening programming on Fox also to have you kind of break the ice for them. So I said, Ray, I'm retired and everything like that, but if it'll help these guys out, okay,
And it's been tremendous.
Yeah.
Rush did his time, and Sean Hannity comes on after your program.
Yeah.
And I think he's very grateful for your work.
Well, when Ray said, you can do the warm up for Sean Hannity, I thought, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I'll go ahead and do it.
Ever the humble.
Yeah, I'm a pretty humble guy.
That was Rico Blankenfor who listened and heard the story on Clay and Buck.
Good going, Rico. Thanks for bringing that up. Of course, it doesn't surprise any of our tailgaters, I suspect. Next item on the card, Manny Cruz versus Michael Bavacqua. Yeah. Bavacqua insulted Catholic Church. Well, why should the Catholic Church feel like it's any different than anybody else? I think that some of the people involved with the Catholic Church are colonizers. Like this guy, San Vittorius. I better not say this on the air. Colonizers. Professor Michael Lujan Bavacqua has expressed openly his disdain for the Catholic culture and the history of Guam in his last article in the December 31 issue of the Daily News. His disdain for Catholic culture and the history of Guam. In his article, the professor provided some possible misstatements, and column was titled Carabao in the Belen. In the most celebrated holiday on Guam, Christmas Day, he attempted to poke fun with the Christmas crib to make sure that the carabao be included beside the crib with the cow and the donkey. He raised arguments that Catholicism was instrumental in the loss of Chamorro culture on the island. Apparently, his interpretation of historical events and his definition of culture led him to believe that the ways in which Catholicism blended or adapted with Chamorro were the causes for such a depiction. He admitted that he felt this way due to his non-Catholic beliefs and upbringing. At the same time, he considered himself to be Chamorro. As a Chamorro descendant and as a Catholic, I personally found Bavacqua's comments and generalizations insulting and unfortunate. I admit that my Chamorro ancestors were Christianized and accepted the Catholic faith freely. It wasn't forced upon them by the Spanish missionaries. Understandably, it was the Spanish missionaries who introduced the Christian beliefs and culture to the Chamorro people and were accepted together with the religious practices that were common and available at the time. Bavacqua may find such practices as foreign to the Chamorro people. Aren't we supposed to start out here with the understanding that anything dealing with Chamorro culture, etc., there's only one real authority. His name is Michael Bavacqua. And to come along and say, and to contradict Michael Bavacqua, isn't that a form of heresy? Yeah. Bavakwa may find such practices as foreign to the Chamorro people, but for us Catholics, we believe the Catholic faith is universal and worldwide under the leadership of the Pope in Rome. Well, the word Catholic means universal. The Catholic faith was founded over 2,000 years ago and has remained united throughout the world. The Belen, or nativity scene, was never the creation of the Chamorro people. Whoa.
That's blasphemy.
Really? But an expression of the love and hope that Christmas season is able to bring about. The carabao may be added to the Belen not to change the nativity scene, but to express a local identity. And to add insult to injury, I also found Bavakwa's understanding of the Santa Marian Camelin story insulting and dangerous. To comment that the requirement for poor fishermen to wear some clothing before approaching the statue of the Virgin Mary was a sign of respect and not to be taken as a colonizing effect. How dare the professor make such a statement and insinuation? As a matriarchal society, the Chamorro people will always have a tremendous respect for women, no matter what nationality they may be. True to his words, Bavakwa will always find our Catholic beliefs, practices fascinating. I pray that that will be the extent of his fascination. I, for one, as a Chamorro and a Catholic, will always challenge him at every turn. Me too. In fact, I will challenge anyone who dares to rewrite the history of Guam, to cancel Chamorro culture and practices, and to teach critical race theory to our children and our people. I'm waiting very carefully for Bavakwa or any other Chamorro activists to take down statues of St. Paul John II across the museum and Pali San Vittoris across the legislature as racial and colonization efforts. Both the island of Guam and the Marianas are rich with historical traditional events worthy to be recognized and remembered. Well, this is Manny Cruz. I think probably everybody out there in our international radio listening audience remembers Manny. He was the business agent for the American Federation of Government Employees for a long time. He ran for Washington once. He ran for senator in 2002. He and I were on the campaign trail together. Let's break for halftime. We'll come back to Manny Cruz.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Shifting his focus, I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. As the Omicron variant grips the nation, President Biden makes a push for lawmakers to pass the Democrats' voting rights legislation, telling a crowd in Atlanta Tuesday.
The right to vote and to have that vote counted is democracy's threshold liberty. Without it, nothing is possible. But with it, anything is possible.
The president hopes the voting rights issue will unite and invigorate his political base in this midterm election year. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the Senate needs to change the filibuster rules so the voting rights legislation can be passed.
This is so important. Job of a senator is to vote. And the more important and pressing the issue is, the more that plays. We are going to vote.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell countering.
The Senate isn't broken and doesn't need fixing.
Schumer says the Senate will debate and vote on changing the filibuster rule on January 17th. Philadelphia fire investigators believe they know how a Christmas tree caught fire last week, sparking a row house fire that killed 8 children and 4 adults.
With near certainty, based on the evidence, that the ignition source for that tree was a lighter that was located nearby.
Philadelphia Fire Commissioner Adam Thiel. The FAA confirms it issued a full ground stop Monday night for all flights for the West Coast for several minutes as North Korea reportedly fired a ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan. And stocks snapped a 5-day losing streak on Tuesday. The Dow gained 183 points. America's listening to Fox News.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Their services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice. Octopus to Naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try the keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
An email reveals Education Secretary Cardona may have been involved in a National School Boards Association letter suggesting the Patriot Act be used to address parental aggression at school board meetings.
New emails obtained through a FOIA request appear to show the Secretary of Education may have solicited that now infamous letter from the National School Boards Association, the one that critics say conflated parents of U.S. students with domestic terrorists. Parents Defending Education, a group that's criticized school curriculums and closures, tells Fox News, quote, should this allegation be true, it'd reveal that this administration's pretextual war on parents came from the highest levels. On September 29th, the NSBA sent a letter to President Biden. It warned that, quote, America's public schools and education leaders are under an immediate threat. The group then asked for federal law enforcement to step in and help. They have since apologized for the tone of that letter.
Fox's Jillian Turner. An Education Department spokesperson denies the claims the secretary was involved in creating the letter. Scientists are seeing signs the Omicron variant may have peaked in Britain and is about to do the same in the U.S. The reason? The variant has proved so wildly contagious that it may already be running out of people to infect. All that glitters is not gold for 2 Florida women accused in a sparkly attack.
Police arrested 2 Clearwater, Florida women on felony burglary with assault or battery charges, saying they threw glitter on a man and broke into his home during a dispute early Monday morning. Court records say 29-year-old Sarah Franks and 27-year-old Caitlin O'Donovan began arguing with the victim, then hit him with a can of glitter. The pair was arrested after their car was located, which contained more glitter. Rich Dennison, Fox News.
And I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglonia from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com.
Big halftime show here on Tall Tales. Always a success, always interesting. The marching band, the drill team, the cheerleaders. One of these days we'll get those synchronized card sections back up in the stands as soon as we put this Wuhan virus stuff behind us. Before the halftime show, I read a letter to the Daily News by Manny Cruz, and I was telling you, or I was reminding you, not telling you, I was reminding you exactly who Manny Cruz is. Former candidate for the legislature, ran for Washington rep, business agent for the American Federation of Government Employees, ran for senator in 2002. He and I were on the campaign trail together. He was a director of labor at one time. He's a pretty accomplished gentleman. And he's one of those folks out there in the community that when he says something, I tend to pay attention. I may not always agree, but I never dismiss. I always pay attention to what he says because he's a pretty credible individual. Knows his way around Guam, knows his way around a lot of things. And, you know, when he comes out like this and takes on the great champion of everything Chamorro, I think it kind of tells you something, because I suspect that an awful lot of people feel the same way that Manny Cruz feels. Writing a letter to the editor, that's something that's beyond most people. In fact, before the word processor came along, writing a letter to the editor was quite an undertaking. Now, not so bad. So when Manny puts this stuff down, I think it sends a pretty strong signal that Michael Bavacqua is not as accepted in the Chamorro community as he would have us believe, as though he were the only possible spokesman for things Chamorro, the island of Guam, Guam's future, etc. And of course, as Manny points out, he's taken on the Catholic Church. Now, what I'm going to say here, you can't dispute. These are the facts. This is the letters, not the word. And that is that Spain first landed on Guam in 1521, Magellan, and in 1668, Padre San Vittorius and the Spanish fleet landed on Guam to make Guam a Spanish colony, which is exactly what they did. And they brought Catholicism with them. And Catholicism, I think, for want of a better term, took hold, and it's still a dominant social factor 500 years later. Now, Bavacqua's shtick is that there has to be an end to colonization, and not only just an end to colonization, but the incidence of colonization also. So that the people of Guam can be completely and fully free to do whatever it is that they want. Now, when he talks about the people of Guam, I don't think he's talking about me. I think he's talking about Chamorros, etc. And Manny speaks up as a Chamorro and as a Catholic. So you got to wonder how Bavacqua is able to take this zero-sum game. It's independence or nothing, and still not run afoul of the Catholic Church. And he has kind of pulled his punches when it comes to the church. He has come along and said, well, you know, the pre-contact Chamorros aborted babies too. Yeah, and his mother did also. That's, you know, his mother was pro-abortion also. Therefore, it must have been okay in the Chamorro culture. So, congratulations, Manny. It's good to see that somebody's coming out here and telling the international radio listening audience that although the word is red, the color is orange. I've got to fix this thing somehow. There it is.
You know, some of this narrative of being colonized and Christianized, it could kind of be interpreted as a precursor or explain what results could happen if there was a plebiscite here on Guam. Now, nobody's ever going to be 100% about things, ever. We know that in politics. We know that about even the color of red rice.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it has to do with perceptions. And back then, there was a dominant force, sometimes used with dominating through weapons or with food and water and goods and stuff. However, the choice that Chamorros made and people all over the world make wasn't just because they're forced into it and they're mindless stones about it. They made decisions to survive. And Chamorros kept a lot of cultures that were worth keeping and that were able to be kept. They maintained a lot of things about themselves, and they got rid of a lot of things that were not compatible to this new concept, Christianity. Now, I'm not making any excuses for all the atrocities that happened. However, we got to stop this mindset of thinking Chamorro pre-contact, we're not smart enough to adapt to what's going on in the world. And Chamorros these days are not smart enough to adapt as well and want to have this kind of relationship with the United States. Instead of always thinking independence, we're separate from them and we want nothing to do with the United States. People here on Guam who kind of push for the status quo are not ignorant. They're making a decision that they think and deem seem right, and it's been working well. Whether you agree with that or not is fine, but to put this notion of ignorance on anyone who doesn't want to radically change to something we don't even know what that radical change is going to be, the results, is just got to stop.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's very well put, Jose. There's only one thing wrong with what you said. So I didn't say it myself because it's very, very good, very well done. Thank you. Okay, well, we'll leave Manny Cruz alone for a little while, and we'll go back to something I talked about on Friday, which was tall tales versus gaslighting. And it is rampant here on our island. Now, once again, I'll explain what this term means, gaslighting. Just not too long ago, someone that I was out to lunch with said, you know, I hear you talking about gaslighting on the show, Bob, a lot. What does that mean? And this is what it means. There was a 1944 movie called Gaslight, and it starred Charles Boyer, Ingrid Bergman, and Joseph Cotton. And it was about a man who knew that a woman had a fortune in jewelry, and he wanted to steal that jewelry from her. So in order to do that, he was Charles Boyer. He was a Frenchman, so very romantic, of course. So he was able to sweep Ingrid Bergman off her feet. They got married. He wanted to then move into the house that she'd lived in before. And it turns out that he thought that these jewels were hidden in that house somewhere, but he didn't know where. But he thought if he could move into the house, he could find the jewels. And part of his plan was that he wanted to drive his wife crazy so that she would be institutionalized so that he could really tear the house apart. It's a really good movie. Next time it's on Turner Classic Movies. You may want to make sure you watch it. So he looked all over the house. There was a large attic upstairs. People on Guam really aren't too familiar with attics. But in the mainland, houses have, even a two-story house will have 2 floors that people live on, and then above the second story will be an open space between the roof and the second story of quite some size, and it's called an attic. And people use their attics for storage primarily. It's about it. So he figured out a way. Charles Boyer figured out a way that he could go to a house 3 houses away or around the corner, and go through attics and get into the attic above the house he was trying to search. And he did that. Now this was a time before electricity, and people were using gas for lights. So you had gas lights in houses. So when he got up to the attic, he would turn on the gas lights, and this would cause the lights downstairs to dim. And he was always trying to prove to his wife that she didn't know what she was doing. He would say something one day, and then the next day say, "Oh, no, dear, I didn't say that. I think you're imagining things again." And he just did this constantly. So with the gas lights, when he'd come back to the house, she'd say, "The funniest thing happened while you were gone. The lights dimmed, the gas lights dimmed." And he'd say, "Well, look, they're bright now. The gas lights don't dim. You're just imagining that, my dear." And he almost drove her nuts until Joseph Cotton came in and saved the day. And the story had a reasonably happy ending considering all of the trauma involved. But the term gaslighting then was used as a means of trying to convince people that what is apparent isn't real, and it has flopped over into the political scene. So when you have a politician who's telling you something that it doesn't square with the facts, commentators will accuse that person of gaslighting, just like in the movie. Well, we've had 2 instances of gaslighting right here in our island. On Friday, I talked about the $10 million funding for war claims still awaits legislative move. That was the article that ran in the Post. And what it was the legislature passed a bill that said, in order to correct the big mistake that they made on paying war claims, I think you all remember that, so they fixed that. And then they said that the governor was supposed to come up with a plan to pay war claims to the 700 people that missed the deadline. And it was to be submitted to the legislature in the form of a bill. And the legislature had 30 days to act on it. And if it didn't act, the plan would be adopted. So on the 31st day, the governor's right out there saying, "I've already begun work to get that money into people's hands, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to pay those war claims out because the legislature didn't act." Well, that really puts the governor in a nice position. The legislature didn't act like they were supposed to, but I'm going to act because they didn't. All we need is an appropriation. Now, the bill that the governor sent over was substituted, and in the substitute bill, there's a $10 million appropriation from the general fund. But I see this as a means for the governor to ratchet the legislature into identifying a specific source. Guys, you let the 30 days run. The bill is law now. $10 million from the general fund isn't good. You've got to identify a specific source. And if the legislature doesn't, who gets the blame? The legislature. Well, the unfortunate thing about this for the governor is that the 30-day, you can't enact a bill, you can't pass a bill by the passage of time. There's no such thing as default passage of a bill. The only way a bill can pass in the legislature is at a properly called and noticed session of the legislature where a quorum is present and a majority of the people there vote by the yeas and nays to pass the bill. Other than that, there's no other way to pass a bill. Once it's passed, it's sent to the governor, who can veto or enact. So this whole thing about the 30 days, I can't understand why the legislature came up with such a silly idea, but I can understand why the governor is capitalizing on it. And what she's doing is she's saying, the gas lights never dimmed. Look, they're bright right now. I don't know what you're talking about, people. The second example was the Attorney General and his, quote, lawsuit, which I spent some time on. You'll recall that the governor put together 174 pages, stapled them all together, poked them through the filing window at the Superior Court, and got out a press release and said, I filed a lawsuit. Yeah, and I explained that in order to have a lawsuit, there are some kind of essential elements, you know, like defendants, an issue, a case or controversy.
That's a radical idea.
It really is. And the 174 pages had none of this. 9 of it was complaint, and the rest of it was 4 exhibits, which were complete copies of 4 contracts entered into by the Department of Homeland Security and 4 hotels down on the beach. And the Attorney General kind of pretends to ask questions, but in these 9 papers, he answers the questions himself. And the 4 contracts that he attaches are what he's suing. So he's saying this is an in rem action, and I'm suing 4 contracts. And then the prayer is not that the contracts be awarded to him, but that the judge say, yeah, what the governor did was fine. That's basically it. So it's a really nice present for the governor. It's not a lawsuit. My sincere hope is that when that chunk of papers lands on a judge's desk, he dismisses it sua sponte, of his own motion, because there's no other way for it to come before the court. There won't be a defendant filing motions to dismiss, discovery motions, motions for summary judgment, because the defendants are 4 contracts. They aren't even alive. They aren't even people. They aren't even corporations. So once again, I hypothesize this scenario. Let's say that the judge doesn't dismiss it, that the papers just lay there. And when we get down, oh, and I forgot to mention this, that one of the things that the lawsuit does not mention at all is the BJ Cruz, the public auditor, skewering the governor on a conflict of interest basis, because instead of using the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Public Health and Social Services to negotiate the contracts, she had her son-in-law do it, who happened to be her legal advisor. Or was he not the legal advisor, but the consigliere? You Godfather fans. Was he the local equivalent of Tom Hagen? So BJ hit her pretty hard on the conflict of interest, but the Attorney General doesn't mention that in the suit at all, suggesting maybe that, you know, keep moving. There's nothing to see here. There's nothing wrong here. So that when the campaign for governor gets heated up in the fall, you can bet that the Republicans are going to say, hey, how about your son-in-law and that conflict of interest and all of the chicanery with the 4 hotel leases and on and on and on. The governor is going to be able to wave a sheath of papers before the Republicans and say, I guess you didn't notice, but the Attorney General said it's okay. Classic case of gaslighting on the part of the Attorney General. I wonder if he has a petition in to change his name from Levin Camacho to Charles Boyer. And perhaps he could do a screen test along with Hope Cristobal, and both of them could start acting careers. Well, that's what I wanted to say about gaslighting. And it's unfortunate because when public officials speak, they shouldn't be trying to fool us. They should be, they can be clever. They can present a situation in a light most favorable to them. But don't try to make us think that because you filed 174 papers at the Superior Court, it's a lawsuit. And don't make us think that because you climbed on this 30-day no action by the legislature that you really don't know that that isn't a law, Governor. Okay, next item on the card is the cops versus Quasi-Jack. This is on the calendar yesterday also. We had a story yesterday from the Post, victim to driver and drive-through crash. Dude, where are you going? And this was about the gentleman who was just trying to exit a drive-through KFC.
It's quite an assumption there. Call him a dude.
Yeah, you got to be really careful about stuff like that anymore, right? Unless dude is like they, it could be, it's not a gender-inflected word. You could be female and still be a dude.
These days, yes.
Yeah. So Jay San Nicolas was pulling out of KFC and got into a head-on collision. Now, you'd think the last place you'd ever be in a head-on collision is when you're driving out of a drive-through restaurant. But that's what happened to Jay. And when it came up, we didn't know who the driver of the car that hit Jay head-on was. And, of course, my mind immediately sorted out drive-through restaurants and things like that, and I came out with Drive-Through Jack. He's the only one I know that seems to subsist on drive-through food. And I thought, well, maybe it was Jack. But then after I thought about it a little bit, no, I don't think Jack would do that. So on the calendar yesterday, it was Drive-Through Jack versus Kentucky Fried Chicken. But I've amended the calendar. Now it's cops versus Quasi Drive-Through Jack. Quasi is a nice word that means sort of like or almost, right? Quasi Drive-Through Jack. And here's the latest from the Post. Investigators with the Guam Police Department are looking for a man who lost control of a pickup truck before crashing into another vehicle in the drive-through of the KFC restaurant in Machechi Dedido on Sunday. The operator lost control of the vehicle, ran off the roadway, and collided with the vehicle in the drive-through, said GPD spokesperson Berlin Savella. What's the matter? The chief isn't around anymore? Not making public statements? No injuries were reported. Police have not made any arrests as a search is underway for the driver who fled the scene on foot. Savella said the crash is under investigation. On Sunday, Jay San Nicolas was getting lunch with his children when a pickup suddenly collided head-on with his vehicle as they were about to leave the drive-thru. He'd spotted the truck being towed by another car just moments before near Isangsong Road, unaware of what was about to occur. The truck hits the center island, and the next thing you know, it came straight at us, San Nicolas said. The kids were looking at it like, wow. Then I told the kids to hold on, and boom, he flew over the parking median and right into us. The blue Nissan pickup that hit him was being towed by what appeared to be a late 2000 model blue Santa Fe or Tucson. The driver in that car didn't turn back to check on the man he was towing. San Nicolas tried to talk with the driver. The unidentified driver was described as being 5'10", thin build, dark complexion, possibly local, in his late 40s or 50s. So the cops are looking for him anyhow. That's always a good sign. And I mentioned the chief, Chief San Nicolas, and it reminded me of our great pronouncements. And the chief is one of the stars of the great pronouncements, going back to the last time that we had a car in a drive-through incident. It was what the real Joe Cruz called Jeep throat. And it occurred at, what was the guy's name? Restaurant.
Jerry Kitchen.
Jerry Kitchen, yeah. And there was a police officer in the car, and everybody was, and it just went on and on and on. And when this happened, everyone who read about it in the paper said, wow, there's something going on here. This sure looks like a cover-up. When Chief Ignacio came forward with his immortal words, I have no information, even from the get-go, that there was a cover-up in this crash. Words to live by. And we've got a new member in the Great Pronouncements Club. You know, we started out with Vanessa Williams, who said, it's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. Such a compassionate person. Such a values-oriented female. And then we had the governor who said, we are transparent and accountable to the people. We are transparent with reports, meetings, and minutes. As far as I'm concerned, we're following everything we are required to do. Now, the key phrase there, as far as I'm concerned. And anyone who came along and said, Governor, that may be as far as you're concerned, but there's a lot more to it than that. To which he would say,
off with your head.
Exactly. Yeah. And the governor also said, I think the route to go is to get out there and let's vote for it. The governor said, later adding, if I had it my way, I would vote tomorrow, and I would only vote with native inhabitants. A separatist. And then the newest member of the club is the mayor of Moleso, Ernest Chargaloff. When he was talking about how the money should be divvied up amongst the village mayors. Should the small villages get as much as the large villages, or should it be pro rata? Ernest came up with a proposition, an irrefutable proposition of law. This is what Ernest said. It should go to each village in the same amount, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You can't argue with that. Okay, let's head for Wrigley Field.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
The Eat Fresh Refresh goes on at Subway. You've tried the Cali Fresh steak. Now you can enjoy the Cali Fresh turkey. One of only 2 Cali Fresh subs. The Cali Fresh turkey is packed with deli-thin, oven-roasted turkey piled high on a bed of hickory smoked bacon, smashed avocado, and fresh mozzarella. Crafted for premium freshness, the Cali Fresh turkey is made on freshly baked, hearty, multi-grain bread with your choice of fresh veggies, hand-sliced daily in restaurants. Treat yourself to a Cali Fresh turkey today. Subway. Eat fresh.
Is it time to sell a new car? Nope, it's time to sell a used car from Nissan Guam. They have what they refer to as certified pre-owned vehicle. They're used cars aren't just washed and then stuck on a lot. Nissan Guam carefully inspects and repairs each one inside out before it earns a spot in their certified pre-owned inventory. A full 32-point inspection is done. Vehicles undergo repairs and replacement of things like belts, air filters, coolant, transmission fluid, engine oil, plenty of stuff. And once they're up to their roadworthy standards, then they're fully detailed inside and out. You know, I pity the guy that has to detail mine because there's sand everywhere. There's sand and receipts and all kinds of other stuff. Used car manager Marlon Laxon prices the vehicles below Kelley Blue Book. They've got a diverse inventory, and you're sure to find the perfect used car for your lifestyle and budget. For the complete inventory, go online at NissanGuam.com.
Here we go. Last item on the card today is Tall Tales versus Separatists. I'm still working my way through this 20-page insert that ran with the December 6th Pacific Daily News. This is what it looks like. I talked about gaslighting a little earlier. I guess I'm back to that. Because it's put out by the Commission on Chamorro Self-Determination. And it's supposed to be, I suppose, educational, but it's very cleverly done propaganda that's meant to channel the thinking processes to the idea that the only proper result for Guam is to be independent from the United States of America. Now, I'll go through some of the preliminaries, although I've been through them before, just to refresh your recollection. The commission, what we call the Decolonization Commission, is actually called the Commission on Decolonization for the Implementation and Exercise of Chamorro Self-Determination. In other words, what does decolonization mean? It means the implementation and exercise of Chamorro self-determination. The rest of you guys just kind of hang around. And this is 1 GCA Chapter 21. It was passed in the 23rd Guam Legislature, Bill Public Law 23-147, introduced by no one other than Hope Cristobal, who, as far as we can tell, is the face and voice of the separatist movement. And if you haven't seen Hope's screen test, the video, we'll run it again on Monday, probably right after the big halftime show. So if you haven't seen it, you want to make sure that you put it on your calendar so you can watch it on Monday, because I think Hope really lays it out in clear, unvarnished terms as to what it is that the separatists are looking for. So the Commission on Decolonization for the Implementation and Exercise of Chamorro Self-Determination is a papier-mâché commission. It's got some really high-sounding titles seated ex officio: the governor, the minority leader of the legislature, the speaker of the legislature, etc. But as far as I can tell, the Chamorro Self-Determination Commission really doesn't do anything. Melvin Wanpat, the executive director, appears to be a free agent who can go and do whatever he wants, wherever he wants, whenever he wants. So the 20-page insert that they put out starts out by saying on page 1, it says, resolving Guam's political status is important work that will prepare our island to move into the future. Now, this is put out by the commission, and the commission is called the Commission on Decolonization for the Implementation and Exercise of Chamorro Self-Determination. So when the sentence says resolving Guam's political status, it's quite a mouthful, because what it means is one of two things: that when you say Guam, you mean only Chamorros, or you're talking about something other than what the commission by statute is supposed to be doing. And this kind of dichotomy occurs throughout this 20-page insert. So if you are not a careful reader, if you just just read it like you would read the Sunday paper, you come away with the idea that Guam and Chamorro self-determination are synonyms. They mean exactly the same thing, when of course they don't. So there are several subheadings here. For instance, what is colonization? Who are the colonized? And then finally we get to today's topic, which is, turn the page here. What status options are available to the Chamorro people? The attainment of self-governing status is when a colony status has been changed, and that change provides for the former colony to be either 1, an independent nation state, 2, integration with a sovereign nation, such as statehood in the U.S. system, or 3, a freely associated state, an independent state that retains its sovereignty while negotiating aspects of its relationship, diplomatic, economic, military, in an agreement with another sovereign nation. So if you listen carefully, you'll see that there's no difference between free association and independence, because you can't negotiate with the United States unless you're an independent nation. The United States is not able to negotiate with an unincorporated territory. That would be like taking a shower with your swimming suit on. It just wouldn't count. So that leaves just 2 possible statuses left, statehood and independence. And I've explained before, statehood is unrealistic because we don't have 200,000 people here. The last time we counted, we had 154,000 people. The state with the smallest population is Wyoming, with 860,000 people. There are 4 states that are about that size, so small they have just 1 member of the House of Representatives. The chances of the United States Congress passing an enabling act that would grant statehood to Guam, that would mean 1 member of the House and 2 senators, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen unless if we had 800,000 people, then it might happen. But can you imagine Guam with 800,000 people on it? I don't know that I would want to be living here if that were the case.
Was that representative from Georgia? He'd finally get his prediction to come true. Will definitely tip over.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What was his name? Johnson. Yeah, Hank Johnson. You're right, Jose. So there is some gaslighting going on here, because the separatists would say, well, you got 3 choices: free association, statehood, or independence. You know, the Chamorro people could pick any one of those 3, and that would be the decolonization of the island of Guam, because it's what the Chamorros picked. And it is gaslighting, because they just explained why statehood is not a feasible option and free association is just independence. So when you scrape the paint and varnish off it, all you have left is independence. So when you hear people say, I think we should have Chamorro self-determination, Chamorros have been colonized for 500 years, it's time for it to stop. Translate that into actuality, translate it into the color of the letters. I got to make a new sign here. This is harder because, you know, if you move the card one way, it goes the other way on the screen. Yeah, there it is. The color of the letters is orange, but the word is red. So that's exactly what we're looking at here. The color of the letters is orange. the actual fact is that there's only one option here amongst these three. But the narrative, the word, oh, you got three choices. You can make three choices. And of course, the real choice is this. Do the people that actually live here want to remain part of the American political family, or do they want to divorce from the United States and become an independent state, independent sovereign state, not affiliated with the United States? My own analysis of that is no. But who's going to ask that question? Certainly not the Commission on Self-Determination, because what you have is you have people on the government payroll lobbying for independence. And once we decided that, once a majority of the people said, no, we're happy where we are, there's no more need for the Commission on Self-Determination. It would go away. And perhaps so would some of the rhetoric about, well, you got three choices. So a classic, in my analysis, it's a classic case of gaslighting. We have three different choices when really there are only two actual choices.
So the way to dissolve this commission would be to enact another law, or to fulfill it.
You'd have to repeal the law that created it, and I suppose this would cause. I can imagine who would come down and testify at the public hearing on that. That'd be a good public hearing to miss, I think. Yeah. So that would, but what I'm saying is, as a practical matter, if we had that vote, and a majority of people said, no, we don't want to leave the American political family, then the commission is superfluous. We really don't need it. And I wrote a column about that in the Pacific Island Times. But the gaslighters would say, well, yeah, but that wouldn't be decolonization. So it's kind of the word is that you got to decolonize whether you want to or not, whether you're satisfied with the situation that you have in the American family, political family, is not the important thing. And of course, I read all of these things as once again pointing in one direction and one direction only. The only resolution for Guam's situation is an independent Guam. And that's why I spend a lot of time with this on the air. Now, ordinarily, I would... Mark hung up?
Yeah, there was a question, but I'll ask it after the break.
Yeah, okay. Well, go ahead and ask it now, because this will take us... Okay, yeah, we got a break coming up. Let's head for Churchill Downs.
Need to finish the job or start one the right way? Get the right stuff at East West Rental Center. You can switch to easy mode using industrial strength equipment. With years of experience helping builders, East West Rental gives you exactly what you need. Tools for landscaping, concrete, lifts, trucks, tables, tents, chairs, water blasters, excavators, forklifts, air compressors, and more. Call East West Rental Center at 646-1463 or visit them in Upper Tumont. Open Monday to Saturday from 7 to 5, Sundays 8 to 5.
Okay, so here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. 6 furlongs more, and I will reach the finish line, and it'll be the end of another educational, exciting day on Tall Tales. So, Jose, you wanted to tell me what Mark was talking about?
There was a question about again, it has to do with repealing the law or taking it off. Could and this is assuming that the language in the law included the misappropriation of the Paris Treaty in it. Is it possible to file a lawsuit to nullify it because of that erroneous quote?
Okay, so what we're talking about here is the, let me see if I've got that language here. Mark questions this. I've pointed this out on Tall Tales. The Hope Cristobal's law has this language in it. The United States, as the succeeding colonial power over the lands and people of Guam, acceded to and recognized in the 1898 Treaty of Paris that the political rights of the native inhabitants of Guam shall be protected, and their collective right to political self-determination is inalienable. So this is what the Treaty of Paris actually says. The civil rights and political status of the native inhabitants of the territories hereby ceded to the United States shall be determined by the Congress. So talk about gaslighting in a statute, Hope Cristobal's bill, right? So Mark is saying that because of that particular error in the statute, would it be possible to have the statute repealed in a lawsuit? No. The legislature can put all kinds of fiction in print, assign the right numbers to it, and it'll appear in the law books. The only time that statutes are struck down, it's not the statute that is sued, it's the person enforcing an unconstitutional statute. So although this is gaslighting and it's wrong and it's very misleading and we should be able to expect more from our legislature, lawyers would say a suit would not lie because of its inclusion in the statute. Good thinking, though, Mark. The guy always makes his mark when he calls.
Well, it's definitely a political tiny snowball.
Yeah, it is. And once again, you know, it's when you talk about actors playing to type, you know, John Wayne would never be able to play a pushover, you know, someone that wasn't a big, strong, etc. He always played to type. That's why he was John Wayne, right? Well, again, Hope Cristobal, she of the screen test, was playing to type with that statute. Didn't make any difference what the Treaty of Paris actually said. What she put in her statute is a whole lot more compelling.
Oh, and a more recent example is that resolution that the then Speaker Tina Moon Barnes put through that completely fabricated the context of a side summary of
a Navy report.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Completely.
And now that's a resolution.
Yeah. And now it's in print and it's floating around somewhere. And yeah, so the cure for these types of melodies happens every 2 years in November. And so when people do stuff like that, you got to send them home. Don't send them back to the legislature. Okay, so that's a short course on the three options that the separatists would present to you. And as I said, the only two real options are number one, or let's make it number one, independence, because the Congress under Article 4, Section 3 certainly can dispose of the territory of the United States. It did that in 1946 when it cut the Philippines loose and the Philippines became an independent country. That's one possibility. The other is to keep Guam in the American family, which is the option that I prefer. And I've made several suggestions as to how we could improve our lot, improve our situation as part of the American family. But up until now, it's been pretty good for this island. If you've had the opportunity to travel to any of the other islands in this part of the world, independence might not seem to be such an attractive option for you. Emotionally, it strikes a very responsive chord. Chamorro should be independent. We should control our own destiny. You know, it's the kind of thing that you could You can, if you're a really good orator, you can get people really fired up over it.
And for the most part, there are quite a number of Chamorros who have control of their own destiny and are doing very well, whether here or in the United States, as equal free citizens.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I'm waiting for the separatists to hold a rally down in Ipoh Beach on a Saturday afternoon at 10 o'clock in the morning with the instructions: bring your passports. We're going to burn our passports. We'll show them. Yeah. So the rest of this paragraph says, while these statuses are common wisdom, the three I just mentioned, they have been the international basis for evaluating whether a territory has attained full self-government in accordance with the United Nations Charter. Now, people advance this United Nations angle as though it's really persuasive. And there's an irony here. People that are talking about self-determination, independence, free will, etc., think that a group of people meeting in New York City who have no interest whatsoever in our island, are never going to come here, don't care anything about the island, are going to care. You're going to get a better deal from them than you would with the United States Congress, where you have a representative. It just doesn't make sense. And then it goes on to say the United States was the principal proponent of these status options being adopted in the UN General Assembly Resolution 1541. Yeah, I read Resolution 1541 every night before I go to bed. I don't care about this stuff, and I don't think anybody else does either. It's a technical argument, and it shows a misunderstanding of the mechanics of international law. And I'll just give you one example. International law is based on it's custom-based norms and treaties. A treaty between the United States and another country, there could be two forms of treaty: self-executing and non-self-executing. Most treaties are of the second type. It's a promise by the United States to do something, a promise by the Congress to do something. Therefore, it's not self-executing. There are a few self-executing treaties where a person could file papers in court and bring suit against someone else based on the language of a treaty and not on a domestic statute. But unless you're talking about a self-executing treaty, treaties really are interesting reading, but they don't have a lot of impact on your daily life or even on your future as far as we're concerned. And I don't want to put whipped cream on a pile of dung here, but you know, what the United States did in 1960 was primarily Cold War driven. Cold War is over. And so is Tall Tales for today. So I'm going to sign off by saying, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Taking the fight to the people. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News.
I will not yield. I will not flinch. I will defend the right to vote. Our democracy against all enemies, foreign and, yes, domestic.
Speaking to a crowd in Atlanta, President Biden made a full-throated appeal for U.S. voting rights legislation that's stalled in Congress.
It was that force that the president in Georgia said is needed to advance bills critical to maintaining a key right for American minorities.
We call on Congress to get done what history will judge. Pass the Freedom to Vote Act.
alongside the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Biden added, if the GOP gets in the way,
We have no option but to change the Senate rules, including getting rid of the filibuster for this.
to lower the threshold to a simple majority from a 60-vote minimum to pass those bills. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Health officials say the Omicron variant is spreading so quickly that it may not be a question of whether you get the variant, but when.
COVID-related hospitalizations rival the record set in January of last year, and much of the strain on hospitals this time is from the highly infectious Omicron variant spreading to hospital staff. Although current vaccines are unable to prevent many breakthrough infections, they are keeping people out of the hospital. Most of the surge in COVID-related hospitalizations is among people who are unvaccinated. In Atlanta, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.
And the House panel investigating the Capitol riot issues subpoenas to a pair of Republican strategists and a former White House official. The panel wants to know about their involvement in the planning of one of the rallies preceding